I cannot believe it is February already. This just seems crazy that we are already a month into 2026. And today I wanted to talk about why goals often fail by February. And more importantly, though, some steps on how to succeed. The unfortunate thing is that by now, 80% of New Year's resolutions they're already gone. They're dead. They're dead in the water. Not because people are lazy or things like that. It's actually mostly because the system of New Year's resolutions and goal setting is broken. Every year we make promises to ourselves, particularly in the space I work in. People make promises to themselves about better health, more energy, better habits, want less stress. And every year, by the time it gets to February, people are asking themselves, what is wrong with me? Well, here's the reality. The truth is nothing is wrong with you. The problem isn't you. It's actually how we set goals. The topic or this podcast is called Beyond Default. Interestingly, most people end up with default health. They don't choose their health. They actually inherit it, or they wake up and all of a sudden they're tired or overweight or obese or, whatever it might be. But that's just because health has become a default. And what's happened is that we end up in this rut of being tired and worn out and stressed and burnt out. And, we're living a life that is just accepting how our health what our health has defaulted to. Well, today I want to talk about how you can live a life by design when it comes to health. And of course, if health is something you're already doing a great thing at, you could apply some of these strategies into other goals. They might be personal goals, financial goals, career goals, whatever works for you. Okay, but one of the things that, we kind of started this year with this mantra, new year, new you. Well, I want you to think this is not about having a new year or a perfect version of yourself, but actually just choosing a life that is designed by you, daily designed by you. So let's have a look, first of all, at why do personal goals actually fail in the first place? Well, let's start with the truth, and that is most people are not actually lazy. That's not the reason why they fail. They actually fail because the goals that we're set are actually not designed for our real life. So, often people will set unrealistic goals of what they want to achieve for their health. It might be, I'm going to lose 10 kilos in the month of January, yet their life in January isn't designed for that. They've got the kids on school holidays, they're staying with friends. There's all these reasons why their life is not designed around their actual goal. The second thing is that we often design our goals around what is our ideal life versus how we actually live. And so, we do things like plan workouts when we've got the most amount of energy, when we don't always have the most amount of energy. We plan, going to the gym and attending a class and things like that, not really thinking about, well, what about the days where the kids are running late or someone's sick or, all of these things that actually don't happen, that happen when you've got a real life versus an ideal one. It might be that the morning routine didn't work out, or the meals didn't work out. You did your meal planning, or your preparation didn't happen because you were sick on the weekend, or one of the kids had some kind of sport event on. All of these things can mean that when we don't have this ideal life and yet we have a life of reality and things don't go to plan, sometimes we go, oh, well, you know what, it's not working, just throw it all out the window. Okay. And so, we need to understand how we can keep going and know that things are not going to be perfect. The other thing that I find happens is, the other reason why people tend to give up on a goal is environment. It's one of the biggest things that impacts on goals. There's a really great book by Benjamin Hardy called Willpower Doesn't Work. And people start the year all gung-ho. They're all super motivated to get their goals. But they don't have an environment around them that's supportive of that. They might have, a husband who's bringing home KFC at nighttime, or, saying, oh, let's eat out instead of, cook a meal, or it might be that, you're at in your work environment, everyone is eating pastries and cakes at morning tea time or afternoon tea time when you're really, at your most vulnerable. There's this environment situation that isn't protecting you of you being able to stay focused on your goals. So hence the reason why sometimes we default to health rather than actually choosing it consciously. So what I want to teach you today is some tips that I work with our coaches, with our clients, we work with our clients to say, here are some ways that we can help you not just set a New Year's resolution, but actually make a change that is a lifestyle change forever. So first of all, often we say, the New Year's resolution might be that I'm going to lose 20 kilos this year, or I'm going to give up smoking, or I'm going to, go to the gym every day, whatever it might be. One of the things I would say is have a think about the person you're becoming. I was hearing someone today share with me that, she's feeling a bit demotivated and so forth, and she's focused on like the right here, right now, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and not actually thinking about who am I becoming in the process. It might be that I have to get up and walk 5,000 steps in the morning, or I have to get 10,000 steps in during the day. But what am I becoming? Who am I becoming? So it's like, actually think to yourself, what is this person I want to become? What do I want to be? If I look at myself a year from now, what is it that I want to see myself? How do I want to show up? How do I want to behave? What's the impact I want to have on people? And all of those things can happen when it comes to having good health. So it's not about what do I want to fix, but who do I want to become? And ask yourself that. How do I want to feel in everyday life? What kind of role model do I want to be to my children? Because goals are temporary, but actually it's those things. It's the person we're becoming that actually almost forces you into the habits on a daily basis, and it really gets you aligned. Sometimes it's really good to think about, like, what are my values? What are the things that are important to me? Is being a really good role model to my children important to me? Well, if that's the case, then what kind of healthy person do I need to be? Is smoking actually at odds with me being a healthy role model to my family? Is being obese at odds with me being a role model to my family? If I want to have lots of quality time with my family and live a life, live an active outdoor life, well, is being overweight and tired and so forth, or sore knees, going to inhibit me from doing that? So who is the person I want to be? What kind of mum do I want to be? What kind of partner do I want to be? What kind of person what kind of leader, do I want to be? Because health is like a foundation to all of that. Okay. Now the other thing we want to talk about is, how do we design goals that actually fit with your life? Okay. So just like health can be a default, we've got to design our health for the reality, not the ideal. So how do I often see people going, I'm going to do this gym, I'm going to go to this gym, and I'm going to get these workouts in every day. But actually their schedule doesn't allow it. I'm lucky I have lots of freedom in my life. So, I can go for a walk and go to the gym whenever it suits me with my schedule. But most people are not like that. Most people work a 9 to 5. They might have kids that they need to look after and things like that. So, what is your schedule going to enable for you? We find that on our program, with people only having to do walking, they can fit that in anywhere. They don't have to try and get to a class at a certain time, or there's no pressure of a gym. They don't have to have any equipment. They can just literally put a pair of shoes on and go for a walk. They can walk around their house. They can be on a treadmill, to get their steps in. So design your goals around what fits with your life, and your stress levels as well. When are you at your best? Are you at your best first thing in the morning? By the time you get home at night, are you going to think of 100 excuses? One of the reasons why we encourage people to get out of bed first thing in the morning and get your steps in the morning is so that by the time you get your incidental steps in throughout the day, by the time you get to nighttime, you don't have to have all the excuses in the world not to do something, because you've already done it. You've already got your exercise in. So think about, how do you make your health goal fit in with your life? Because definitely sustainable health that fits with your circumstances is going to work with you rather than against you. Step 3 I'd recommend is to make health a path of least resistance. We often say to people that, if you want to give up chocolate, well, guess what? Don't buy it at the supermarket. If you think that you're going to buy chocolate when you go to the supermarket, then don't go to the supermarket, order online. If alcohol is going to be your thing, don't buy the alcohol. Don't get it delivered to start with. Don't have it in the house. Make it difficult for you to do those things that are bad habits of yours, but also make it easy to do the good habits. We talk with our clients about at nighttime, getting your shoes out and your exercise gear and everything, have it out ready to go, so that in the morning you literally just have to get up out of bed and walk into those clothes, and then you're into action again. One of the wonderful things about walking is you don't have to worry about, is the gym nearby? Do I have to drive? Can I, make it easy for you to get into your good habits. Make it relatively automatic, so you don't have to think about it. We have on our kitchen bench, we have a little box full of our vitamins that we can take. And so lift the lid and bang, 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 we take our vitamins. So again, it's easy. It's automatic. I have some vitamins that I take last thing before I go to bed, and they are right next to where I brush my teeth. So again, it's easy. It's automatic. It's very obvious. So that's the other thing. In Atomic Habits, he talks about making things obvious. So put it right in front of your face. For us, the vitamins sit on the kitchen bench where people prepare their meals. The other vitamins sit beside my toothbrush where I have to brush my teeth before I go to bed. So anything that you want to make a habit, make it easy, make it really obvious, and make the path to it very simple, so that your environment, there's an example of where environment is actually going to help you to be able to get your goals. Okay, the other thing I want you to think about is, how do you start small? Some people say to us, there's no way I could do 5,000 steps in the morning. Okay, don't worry about it. Can you do 5 minutes? Just start wherever you are. They say, I can't do 10,000 steps. That's okay. Can you do 1,000? Can you walk for 10 minutes through the whole day? Can you get 10 minutes of walking in? So start small where you can gradually build up. We call this the compound effect. Darren Hardy wrote a great book called The Compound Effect, where he's like, just work on small habits every day. The interesting thing is, the way that you got to where you are right now with your health is a compound effect of little tiny daily habits that were heading in the wrong direction. And now all we're saying is, do little tiny daily habits that are going to take you in the right direction. So start small, but then be super consistent. Okay, so do something small every day. Think to yourself, okay, I can't get in 15,000 steps today. How many can I do? I can't get in 5,000 before breakfast because I've got to go off to work early this morning. Okay, can you do 5 minutes? What could you do to say, I'm not going to give up completely? It's not an all or nothing mentality. I can do a little bit. What could it be? All right. I can't, my partner's away and my little kids are here, so I can't go out walking. Okay. So you can't go out. Well, what could you do? Could you walk around the house, walk up and down the stairs? What can you do that, again, just gets you into small things and you're consistent rather than nothing at all? Because when you do that, you're going to feel really accomplished. And that consistent habit, you start to get to a point where you're like, oh, I want more of this. Okay. The other thing is, plan for imperfection. It's going to happen. So be on purpose about imperfection. Don't expect your life to be perfect. Living a life by design doesn't mean living a life of perfection. So you've got to ask yourself, okay, what am I going to do on the low energy days? What am I going to do on those days where I'm a bit hormonal and I want to eat other things? What am I going to do on the days that it's raining? What am I going to do on the days where I've got an offsite for work and it's fully catered food? Plan for those things. Plan for rest. Plan for some flexibility in your calendar. Don't, plan for your whole life to be perfect and everything to go 100%. There's the saying, focus on progress versus perfection. Quite often we see people who are perfectionists really struggle with continuing on their health journey, because it's like, well, if I didn't get this, therefore I do nothing. If it wasn't a perfect outcome, therefore it's not good enough and I'll stop. So we've got to plan for progress versus perfection. So, and I think that when it comes to planning for progress versus perfection, it's also measuring progress versus perfection. I hear way too many people, we have a system where people check in every day. Every morning they're checking in and they get coaching and encouragement and support. And I hear many people when they check in talk about all the things that they didn't do the day before. Try and think about all the things you did do. What's one thing that you got right? I know Martin Seligman has a strategy called the 3 good things, and he talks about the fact that being grateful and doing this type of activity of thinking about 3 good things that happened to you in the day, or 3 good things that you're proud of, actually helps you to decrease anxiety, increase sense of purpose, have better mental health, be happier, feel a sense of purpose. Okay, so think about, don't just expect progress. Don't just focus on progress over perfection. Measure progress over perfection by thinking about, what did I do well today? And maybe it's like, what are 3 things that I'm proud of? Or what are 3 things that I did well? And find the littlest things, okay? Because remember, the tiny little things that you do daily are the things that grow. So find those tiny little things. And of course, we don't want to ignore everything we're doing wrong. However, maybe it's just 3 good things and 1 opportunity. What are 3 things that I did well today, or 3 things that I'm proud of? And then what's 1 small thing that I could change to make tomorrow even better? I think that's a really great question. It was taught to me in a period of time where I was coaching on a methodology called appreciative inquiry. And it's where we ask questions based on the positive versus the deficit. So instead of saying, what's 1 thing I did wrong today, it's actually saying, what's 1 thing that I could change so tomorrow would be better? Okay, so we're asking it in the positive. Okay, so the next step and the last one that I want to suggest to you is choose daily, not yearly. So living a life by design is not about a January decision. It's not a 2026 thing. It's actually a daily thing. It's every morning when you wake up. It's every time you put food in your mouth. It's every time you choose to take the stairs versus the lift. It's every time you choose to park further away from where you're going so you can get some extra steps in. It's every time you choose to fuel yourself with healthy, nutritious food versus something instant to give you energy. Health happens in every single moment. And so choose every moment. And of course, if you don't make the right choice in the moment, just remember, in the next moment, you can make the right choice. So it is an opportunity for you to choose a life of health by design, not by default. Okay, so if there's one thing I really want you to take out of this episode and take with you is, you don't need more discipline. You don't need a new body. You don't need a complete life overhaul. You just need daily focus, daily action, daily habits, daily encouragement, whether you're getting that from a coach or encouraging yourself, and a focus on some daily wins. So ask yourself, what's 1 small way that you could start choosing today to live a healthy life by design?